So let's talk about HIV and AIDS. You've heard the terms, right? But for so many of us, they're still surrounded by a lot of confusion, maybe even a little bit of fear. Well, you're definitely not alone in that. Today, we're going to clear all of that up and replace that old confusion with some clear, simple facts.
To really get why this is so important, let me tell you a quick story. Picture a young guy named Rahul. He's full of life, feels totally healthy, has zero warning signs. But after a routine checkup, he gets news that completely floors him. He's HIV positive. And his very first thought is, how? How can this happen? I don't even feel sick.
And Rahul's reaction, it really highlights something absolutely crucial about this virus. A person can live with HIV for years. We're talking sometimes a decade or even longer without a single obvious symptom. And that right there is exactly why awareness and getting tested are so important. Feeling fine just isn't a guarantee that you are fine. Rahul's story just goes to show you how quietly this virus can work in the background. It makes you wonder, right? What are the real facts here? How does it actually work? How does it spread? And honestly, what does life really look like after a diagnosis these days? Let's find out. Okay, first things first, we have to get the language right. So many people use the words HIV and AIDS like they're the same thing, but they are absolutely not. And understanding that difference is the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about. So here's the key distinction. HIV, that stands for human immunodeficiency virus, is the virus itself. Its main job is to attack your immune system, specifically the cells called CD4 cells that help you fight off infections. Now, AIDS is different. It's a condition, a syndrome. It's the most advanced stage of the illness that can happen if HIV is left completely untreated. The great news is, with modern medicine, many people with HIV will never, ever develop AIDS.
All right, let's dive into what's probably the most misunderstood part of this whole topic. Figuring out exactly how the virus is, and more importantly, how it isn't transmitted, is the key to finally getting rid of the fear and stigma that's caused so much harm for so long.
Okay, let's be super clear. HIV is only transmitted through very specific body fluids. We're talking about blood, semen, vaginal and rectal fluids, and breast milk. And this happens in just a few specific ways. We're primarily talking about unprotected sex, sharing needles, or from a mother to her baby during pregnancy or childbirth, but that's typically only if she isn't getting medical care. Now listen up, because what's on this slide is just as important. You cannot, I repeat, cannot get HIV from hugging someone, or shaking their hand, or sharing a meal. You won't get it from a toilet seat, a cough, a sneeze, or a mosquito bite. It is not spread through everyday casual contact, period. End of story. So if someone can have the virus for years and not even know it, are there any signs to look for? And how do you find out for sure? Well, that all comes down to understanding potential symptoms and the real power of getting a diagnosis. Now, in the first few weeks after an infection, some people might feel like they have a bad flu. A fever, sore throat, maybe some fatigue. But the thing is, these are so generic, they could be anything. And many people have no symptoms at all. Zero. You just can't rely on symptoms to know what's going on. And that brings us to the single most important point here. Because symptoms are either totally unreliable or they don't even show up, the one and only way to know for sure if you have HIV is to get tested. It's a simple, confidential process that gives you powerful, potentially life-saving information. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about what happens after a diagnosis, because this is where the story has completely changed over the past few decades. A positive HIV test is no longer the death sentence it was once feared to be. Not even close. The absolute game changer is a treatment called antiretroviral therapy, or ART for short. Basically, it's a combination of medicines that work to lower the amount of HIV in the body, what's called the viral load. By doing that, it protects the immune system and stops the virus in its tracks. And the power of ART is just incredible. When a person takes their medication consistently, their viral load can drop so low that tests can't even find it. It becomes undetectable. This not only protects their own health, letting them live a long, perfectly normal life, it also means they cannot sexually transmit the virus to a partner. That's a concept we call undetectable equals untransmittable. It has been a complete revolution in HIV care.
Of course, prevention is always the best strategy, right? And today we have a whole toolkit for that. Using protection like condoms, getting tested regularly so you know your status, never sharing needles, and we even have preventative medicines for people who are at high risk. These methods work, and they work really well. We've covered the science, the virus, the medicine, but that's really only half the story. The other half is about people. It's about how we treat each other and how we finally move from a place of fear to one of support. And this is so important to remember. For many people living with HIV, the stigma and the judgment they face can be far more painful than the virus itself. HIV is a medical condition. That's it. It's just like diabetes or heart disease. It's not a reflection of someone's character or some kind of moral label. People living with HIV deserve dignity, compassion, and our full support.
So if you take just one thing away from our time together, let it be this. We have all the tools we need to end the HIV epidemic and the terrible stigma around it. The path forward is crystal clear. Replace the old myths with new facts. Replace fear of the unknown with the certainty of testing. And most important of all, replace stigma with simple, basic humanity.